Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Geraldine Convento with us today. Convento, that is. She's CEO and founder at Reverence Global. Yeah, COO and interim CEO there. Founder at Meet Geraldine. So she does web presence and SEO in there. Geraldine's is a bunch of things. She's also a rapper. And you can go check out her website, geraldineconvento.com. She has a couple of ebooks, programs, and even a podcast. So, Geraldine, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to.
Thank you for having me. Well, I am passionate about business. I've been an entrepreneur since, gosh, about 20 years ago or so. And these days, I'm up to a lot of things related to marketing and web, but really expanding into other industries, which has been very interesting. And as you mentioned earlier, I do still rap. I release music. In fact, I was featured on a song a couple weeks ago, which I'll share with you. And yeah, I just am consistently mastering how to manage team and responsibilities, but still do the things that I love to do.
And does rap and entrepreneurship go hand in hand?
That's a great question. And I've never been asked that question before. But, uh, not really. I guess it's something that I compartmentalize. For a long time, I didn't rap. So it was kind of in the background, and entrepreneurship took the spotlight. And now I am figuring out how to merge those two worlds together. It's like if you know, you know. If you know me, you might know I rap, you might not. And it's really an outlet for me that I would like to do more. And we'll see how those intersect in the future.
And how did you get into rap?
When I was 13, I heard a rap song by an Oakland rapper called Too Short, and the way he rapped is so simple. And I was from the San Francisco Bay Area as well, and I said, "Wow, if he could do that, I could do that too." So I started rapping on friends' voicemails, and it grew into recording music and performing and touring. It went places I never thought it would.
Right, I know Too Short, like the Too Short, right? Like, yeah, it's a great rapper. Um, Did yeah? Is it like you said you compartmentalize it? I think yeah, rapping is sort of protected by yeah the AI revolution that's happening because I think it's so hard to make great raps and every day. For example, I'm studying Eminem and Slim Shady and his flow and. It's quite hard when you actually try it because I had my rapping side project as well. And yeah, the question that I was asking was to be a good rapper, you need to be good at improv, for example, especially if you do a rap battle. And yeah, Jay Z is sort of famous for mumble rapping. I think there's like a lot of parallels to be drawn with that to entrepreneurship, right? There's a lot of improv. In entrepreneurship too, there's a lot of hiccups, right, on stage or when you're recording, lots of creativity. Do you think that rap is protected by AI, or it's something also that can be replaced with apps nowadays like suno.com and so forth?
Thank you for asking that. It's a really important question, and it's very popular right now, especially because one of the biggest producers, Timbaland, just signed an AI rapper. I think creativity is protected. And when I say that is that, yeah, because I use ChatGPT all the time, not for rapping, but every now and then if I need to expand upon an idea, I might ask it some questions, but it can't produce the cadence that a person can. And there's certain depth of emotion that it can't capture, but it's absolutely good for ideas. So I think if used or leveraged in the right way with your own creativity and collaboration, it could be really powerful. Will it replace rappers on stage and things like that? I don't think so. I mean, eventually I do see people as holograms performing. I've seen that before, but there's a specific feeling. I used to love going to concerts and seeing my favorite rappers perform, and there's a feeling that person to person interaction evokes. So that aspect of it, I really doubt it'll be a while before AI can reproduce that.
Yeah, the personal storytelling, right, and the human connection, which is very unique to the rap culture. It's stories that you tell usually from a tough background, right? Like a
Yeah.
tough stories that you lived yourself. Do you think you can make a living fully off music or rap nowadays, or just like something that adds other skills to what you're actually doing, or slash a passion slash a hobby?
I think it can be both, just like entrepreneurship. If you have the right strategy, if you have the right long-term vision and consistency, you can make it. And there are other ways to make it in music aside from recording music. You have to tour, you release merchandise for your fans. They say you build your first 1,000 fans and you can make a living. But there's also another route too, which is very important, which is television and film music sync. That's also an industry in itself and can be very lucrative for people who choose to pursue that as an artist.
Right. And you're into so many things, right? Like
Mhm.
astrology and coaching, hypnotherapy, and all of these things. How do you manage all of that? Is it like one consistent flow for you? Is it like more structured or a type of day? Or is it like mostly you let chaos guide you through the day?
I've gone through all of those different stages. The chaos was happened a lot in the very beginning of my career, where I try to just push through and not sleep and do all the things. I realized that wasn't very sustainable. So eventually, I got to a place where I built a team and I started to take on business partners. And that really opened my eyes to how a business really works, especially when you're bootstrapping. And building so what I did is I built that team structure, came up with process, figured out what everybody's weakness and strength was, so that way it would free a lot of my time and even my teammates. I mean, most of us don't work full time, and it's by design. I think the best creativity comes from when you're able to flow throughout your day, and that's how I live mine. Every day I'm scheduling time between meetings or between tasks so that way I can free up my brain capacity.
Right. And yeah, you've done the intros for Outcast and Black Eyed Peas and all these people. Are these people more structured or mostly chaotic? How would you explain that with their current level of success?
I think, well, back in the day when I used to work in the music industry and I met a lot of musicians, I noticed that they were so passionate and so free flowing. They let their creativity take them to wherever unknown places, not even planned. So I mean, although I have seen a few artists in the past that were under stress, I felt like the majority of them were being themselves, which made them really, really successful at what they do and make a greater connection with the audience.
Because I think that's initially what can propel them, is just like naturally getting into their obsessive self. That
Yeah.
yeah, most of the time they're perfectionist and guided by energy, by sort of
Yes.
hype, But don't you agree that when it comes to scaling and to getting to the next level, it might be more problematic for them? We've seen that, I don't know, with Kanye, for example, it's kind of sort of gone insane. We've seen Mac Miller top out that way as well. Like it does at some point, do they need to come from a mindset of like pure artist, pure executioner to more Jay-Z business style, structural and systematic?
I think that everybody has their own strengths, and what's really important is having the right team and the right support system behind you. I can't speak to what that looks like for Kanye or for Mac Miller or um, anyone else who had passed as a result of stress, but I think it's all about who's in your environment. And also, I don't think that people should pursue entrepreneurship if they don't have the right team or mindset for it. But perhaps they have other strengths. I mean, I think Kanye and himself, he's a genius, and I think I followed his Netflix trilogy of docu series, and it's amazing what he was able to produce. And regardless of the fact that there may have been occasions where he had mental breakdowns or had bad press, I think there is no denying the quality of what he's been able to produce as well as his music itself.
Right. I think the documentary is Rhonda. I wouldn't describe it as bad press. I think it's just a reflection of who he is and what he seeks, right? He tries to do a lot
Yeah.
of these PR stunts. I do agree that he's really talented.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've seen a couple of individuals also get from what they're good at to the political scene, like Elon, right? And we know how that ended. It's just a different realm, and I do believe that social media marketing and all and media, it can drive you insane,
Yeah,
just like with this the
pressure.
sheer scale of things and the hate that you get. Like Elon, he's just built differently, right? Like the amount of challenge that this guy has faced, probably like a million x of what I face or you face. So it's just interesting. Don't you think that most of these geniuses are tortured genius, like because they have like so much pain in their words? That way, that also explains their success.
Yeah, and I think it makes them really relatable too. I mean, there's so many different things that they have gone through, of course, to the maximum or extreme capacity versus what we've gone through. However, it's what makes them our heroes. Regardless if there's someone that's hated by a lot of people, there's also a lot of fans that follow their story and resonate with everything they have to say or what they do.
Right. Talking about that sort of artistic tangent, you're also into astrology, right? And most rational entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs that I speak to would be like, "Oh, astrology is bullshit. It's like not science based." And I could understand that point. I can also understand that, yeah, astrology has been used like for millennia, right? And there's some degree of accuracy into it. Like, how did you get into that on your side, and why are you still fascinated by it nowadays?
When I was 21, I had a mental breakdown. It's part of the reason why I stopped rapping. And so I was on meds because I was diagnosed bipolar. I was on meds for 2.5 years. And after that 2.5 years, I decided, I was like, that was just happenstance. I'm going to get off meds and rebuild my life. And that's what I've been doing ever since. And part of that was a self discovery journey. So I did all the self development courses. I looked at all the different modalities of healing and spirituality. And I came across astrologers, and one of them, I had asked them, I said, I am planning to move to Vegas. Is that a good place for me?
Vegas,
Yeah,
of all places.
I was in California at the time.
Oh man.
And he says, no, actually, Taos, New Mexico and Denver, Colorado are better. And I was like, really? What is that? And he's like, well, Taos is a small community, 6,000 people, healers, artists, and creatives. And I was like, all right. And I found out the method that he looked this up was astrocartography. It's where they take your birth chart, they match it with the world map, and it tells you the best and worst places based on how the planets were aligned around you when you're born. And I was like, man, I got to see if this is real. So I told my boyfriend at the time, I said, I'm going to go to Taos, New Mexico for 3 months, and I need to see if this planetary energy is true for me. So I planned this trip. I went. A lot of the things came true in ways that I didn't even imagine it would. And then later, I went to Denver, stayed there for 6 months. Same thing happened again, and my results were amazing. And now I live in Denver. So, long story short, your original question was, how did I get into astrology? It's by following astrocartography, and after that, I started learning about Vedic astrology, which is Indian astrology, and now it's one of my guiding lights. It's not, I don't follow it to the T, but I do use it for insight.
Taos is the first place, the first time I lay eyes on it. It looks really, really special, like a Mayan town or something.
Yeah,
And yeah, Denver's like a top destination. Even I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico today, and yeah, maybe one day I'll get a house in the US, and it'll be either in there or Lake Tahoe, or
yeah.
maybe SF if I'm really like business oriented, AI oriented. And yeah, what do you say to like the unscientific part of it? Is it just like it worked for you, and that's like your true north? Like, what do you say on that?
Well, what's really unique about Vedic astrology is they also focus on how the constellations were placed when you're born. So it goes into even more depth. And they have something called divisional charts where there are predictions for different areas of your life. So what I've done is I've compared life circumstances in the past to this chart and different systems within that. And it has a very distinct explanation. So a lot of people say that astrology is not science based, but it's data based and it can prove the actual reasons why things have happened. So I think that anyone that challenges that, they can, data doesn't lie, and I do SEO as well. So I'm drawn to all of this because there's actual points that I can look at that give me a reason for everything.
I want to talk about yeah, your mental breakdown. Like, how did that happen, and how did you get over that? Because that's yeah, it's a breakdown. It's supposed to destroy you, right? Like, how did you get back up on your feet?
Yeah, so long story short, I was between the ages of 16 to 21. I was touring heavily. I was recording music, and I was also traveling from coast to coast because I was a marketing director in the music industry. So I'd go to New York, to Hawaii, to LA, everywhere. And I lived a very fast paced life. And of course, surrounded by drugs, alcohol, and influences. And I think that it was burnout, and what ended up happening is I barely slept. I became very delusional in the things that I would say. And I had a highly spiritual experience where, how do I explain this without telling a long story? Uh, where I ended up having what I call like a near death experience. Like I saw the end of the tunnel and came back to life, snapped out of it, was totally freaking out. My mom was there and she didn't understand what was going on. And I called 911. And when I called 911, I didn't even know what to say to them, but I told them everything that happened. And they laughed at me. They were like, ma'am, I don't know what's going on. Do you want an ambulance or not? And they're being a-holes. And I said, no, I don't want any of that. Forget it. Hung up. I got really upset. And the next morning after sleeping, my entire family was at the house and they told me we were going somewhere. And where they took me was the hospital. And so I had psychiatric evaluations. And long story short, I ended up signing a whole bunch of paperwork, thinking in my mind, because I've barely gotten any sleep and there's a lot going on. My mind was racing. I thought I was signing autographs, but actually, yeah, I was just literally, because that's what I would do at shows. I'd sign autographs. So I was picturing that I was somewhere else. And so I thought I was signing autographs, but actually I was signing myself into a mental institution. I was
Yeah.
allowing them to take me in an ambulance to a mental institution. And so I ended up staying at a mental institution on meds for the first time in my life, for 7 days. And I lost all of my ability to think. They had piano and music and all these things. They were trying to engage us, but I lost all my rhythm. I couldn't hear my rhymes. It was really detrimental for me because my music career was really my identity. And so, to answer your question on how I ended up getting myself out of that, it was 2.5 years of just laying in bed, looking at the ceiling, feeling nothing, being very docile. And on Christmas, two friends came to see me and they gave me a gift. And they were so excited to give. I hadn't seen friends in a long time. And I just looked at the gift and I had no social skills. I was like, oh, thanks. And I walked to the corner of the room, sat down, felt so embarrassed because I didn't know how to engage with my friends anymore. It's so foreign to me. And so when I went to sleep, I was destroyed. That's probably the most feeling I'd ever had in that 2.5 years. I just felt so embarrassed. The next morning, I woke up and went downstairs, talked to my parents. I said, I don't think that I'm bipolar and I'm going to get off meds. And they're like, well, what are you talking about? You need to heal. I'm like, no, I'll be fine. And I got off meds and I just started living life and trying to figure out what my personality was and what I wanted to do. And that's when I became an entrepreneur. And here we are now.
Yeah, I definitely found my personality as well in being a founder, even up to this day. Like, if you pull that rug out of me, I'll probably, yeah, be destroyed, and like trying to search another identity. Maybe athlete would be the second one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, these meds, they tend to destroy your creativity, don't they? They just like lobotomize your frontal lobe, and you're just left like sort of confused and
Yeah.
like feeling like something is wrong, but you're sort of high at the same time.
Yeah, and not to mention the tremendous weight gain, because they're trying different meds on me. It's like trial and error, It's just like I'm like, okay, this isn't working, so they try something else, and the way that it messes with your body chemistry and hormones really impacts your weight, and it affected my self-esteem as well.
Yeah, it's terrible. Even up to this day, do you still live with that moment in your mind, or do you feel it's fully healed?
I feel like at this point it's fully healed, and it has been for a few years, but it's taken so long. I didn't talk about it for a long time. I didn't even tell anyone that didn't know that I rapped. It was so buried. I didn't want anybody to know. But eventually it just came to a place where it felt safer for me to say something, and I actually did talk with my mom about that situation. She didn't remember that happened. So I don't know if it happened in my mind and like I blanked out or what, or if she forgot. But yeah, I have healed from that. And I feel like that's really what helped me to open the door into doing music again.
Interesting. And tell me about your podcast. Like, who do you get on? What types of conversations you have? And yeah, how do you prepare for it?
Yeah, so it's called the Three Pillars of Success podcast. I believe that you can reach success at any time of your life, and it's defined by you. So the three pillars of success goes by the premise that as long as you define what your three pillars are at any given moment, you can find little or big successes. And so I interview people of all walks of life, and I ask them, "What are your three pillars and why?" And it's a really interesting podcast because what you get to learn is that everybody has their own standards of what success means. It doesn't look like what they show on television or what's modeled for us.
Having a look at the podcast here.
Mhm.
Yeah, do you have yeah, some religious aspect, or I would say the spiritual aspect to it. There's a lot of self help, relationship stuff. So, like you said, you talk to people of all walks of life. But how do you actually select these people? How do you actually outreach to them, or decide that this week we're talking about X and the other one is talking about
Yeah.
Y?
The topics are led by the guests themselves, so the majority of I have specific questions that I ask, and the conversation goes wherever their interests are or wherever their lessons that they learned are expressed. So, but in terms of how I choose, it's really natural. It's people I come across. It's people that I'm huge fans of, such as Vern Harnish, the author who wrote the book Scaling Up. Um, it's really come together organically.
And tell me about your objective this year. What do you want to accomplish?
This year, wow. I have a few music singles that have been recorded for a while that I would like to release. They're a bit different than what I've done in the past. I'm also stepping into becoming a author. I have a book that's coming out on July 1st on Amazon with a co-author, and it's called Start with Keywords. It's about our method of how to produce a strong keyword strategy, but it's not meant for marketers. It's meant for business owners or people who know the context of their business best. And that way, so if they hire a SEO company or they want to do the work themselves, they understand how to really make an impact. So being an author and also focusing more on music are the two areas that I'm really focusing on right now.
Nice. And where can people find out more about you online, Geraldine?
I would recommend going to my YouTube channel. So if you look up Geraldine Convento Digital on, or just my name, Geraldine Convento on YouTube, I post a lot about business and astrology and other things I'm up to in life, as well as Instagram. Those are the two places that I'm the most active. And if you search my name, other things will come up too on Google.
So that was Geraldine and Charles